Skidmore, last budget estimates I raised the cost of the SIDS program for Cessnas. You gave me an undertaking you were going to have a look at why the costs are as much as $100,000 per plane to be compliant. Can you update me on those inquiries, please?
Senator, the evidence that we have, or the investigation we did, led to an indication that the SIDS compliance or initial, I guess, test result or investigations were in the order of $15,000 to $20,000. So, but then depending on that would determine the work that needs to be done and the cost involved in that, and we don't control the labour costs or anything associated. So
you're saying in a rust-free area like where I live, and you've been there, thank you very much, where vehicles virtually don't rust and there's no salt air, etc. If the plane is pulled apart, all is good and put back together, you're looking at about $15,000.
That's the indication we have, about $15,000 to $20,000.
Okay, and on the other matter I raised with you about access to designated aviation medical examiners in regional areas, and you did say that there is a shortage. Has CASA done any further work on this, and are there any signs of improvement as far as these designated medical examiners in regional areas?
Senator, I'd love to be able to encourage doctors out into the regions, but it's very difficult for CASA to do that. There's got to be other ways of doing it, but we do encourage, and we would love to see people being out there as designated aviation medical examiners. I was recently, as I said, in Kununurra and Broome. I do know there's a concern up there. We have, on the record, 704 DAMEs currently. However, I don't have the breakdown in regards to rural numbers, but there is a process that people go through in regards to becoming a designated aviation medical examiner. All I can encourage people to do is continue to do that, and let's see if we can get more people out there.
Well, has CASA done any encouragement to people to take that on? Have you written to anyone or any campaigns run or anything like that?
I haven't initiated any campaign, Senator. I'd have to investigate how best we would actually do something like that and whether it's actually something that CASA can do.
Right, Adam. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. I'll just go to the CASA Part 145 MOS manual standards that was disallowed by the Senate earlier this year, mainly due to uncertainties of additional inclusions to the specialist maintenance provisions. Is CASA, I'm not sure whether it's the department or CASA to ask, is there a plan to reintroduce that regulation? If so, does it contain the same provisions?
Senator, I think it's fair to say that we're currently looking at Part 145 manual standards. We think that there are elements in there that are particularly of use and worthwhile to the aviation community. We'd like to see them introduced. However, we need to make a determination regarding those specialist maintenance activities in particular and have further discussion.
Because Brett Walker SC, on behalf of, in his opinion to the, which I think you've been provided with a copy of from the licensed aircraft engineers, he provided an opinion that not only reflected on the disallowed amendments but on the current provisions, and his opinion was following disallowance there should be a negotiation, an appropriate matter to deal with the disallowed instrument. What actions, if any, have CASA taken in relation to negotiations to improve or amend the instrument? In other words, they were disallowed by the Senate, back to square one. Has there been any attempt by CASA to sit down with interested stakeholders to say, what can we do to try and resolve this so that it won't be subject to another disallowance?
I think following our last discussions, we were more than open to talk to anyone interested in the Part 145 manual standards and the changes, and we remain so. So I'm more than happy. I'd encourage anyone to come and we can have a discussion about it. And I need to engage with probably the ALAEA in particular and understand the implications and the issues.
Right. So your door's open for discussions, but nothing's been initiated. It's not a criticism, but nothing's been initiated by CASA in relation to that.
I haven't initiated anything as yet.
Okay. But if there's a proposal, you might get a call in the next half hour after these estimates. Has the ALAEA put forward a proposal to adopt the European regulatory provisions to do with these standards?
I would have to take that on notice, and I think they have, but I'd have to check in regards to the correspondence that I've received.
Right. And my other question is that does the current Part 145 MOS contain discretionary provisions that allow CASA officers to approve the same types of specialist maintenance that were the subject of disallowance for individual companies. So I guess the point of my question is that is there a discretionary power in the current regulations, or the default regulations, if you like, given the disallowance, that allows you to get around the intent of the Senate in disallowing those regulations a number of weeks ago?
I might ask my Executive Manager of Legal for that interpretation, please, Senator.
Right. It's not a trick question. I'm just trying to work out.
No, I know. I just want to make sure that we've got that correct.
Senator Adam Anastasi, Executive Manager Legal Services. There's a provision in the MOS to Part 145 that permits CASA to approve a new category of specialist maintenance. CASA takes the view that that approval, if made, would be a legislative instrument. So on that basis, that would be subject to disallowance.
So there's no way of circumventing the will of the Senate by using the discretionary powers in the current, in what is now the standing regulation that's in place.
That's correct. The provision is in the MOS that allows a new category of specialist maintenance to be approved. CASA has not before now used that provision.
Right. So there haven't been any approvals. I mean, how many of these approvals have been issued both before and after the disallowance, though?
There have been no approvals under the MOS provision, but prior to the amendment to the MOS, CASA had approved expositions of a Part 145 organisation that did include a new category of specialist maintenance.
So that's not seen as circumventing the will of the Senate in relation to the regulation?
No, because that happened prior to the amendment was even made to the MOS.
Right. And I'll put some of these questions on notice because they're of a technical nature, but can I just ask broadly, does the Australian System of Maintenance Certification align or harmonise with the EASA system, which I understand is the European?
There are similarities, there are differences as well.
Right. So do the Europeans require all maintenance tasks to be overseen by persons qualified as licensed engineers before being released back to service?
It might be easier for us to actually provide you with a comparison between our 145 and the ASA 145, I think, Senator.
Yeah. And
would that be easiest?
I think it might be more suitable to put those on notice and get an answer. I'm getting the death stare from the chair, so I'll be
more than happy to take that on notice and discuss it with you later, Senator.
Right. I just wanted to ask a question at the last estimates, and this is my final line of questioning, Chair. I want to go to question. There was question notice 174 of the pre-budget estimates. This is in the February estimates. This relates to the REPCON and communications. This is about the REPCON in relation to loss of separation or separation assurance in terms of Melbourne Airport and Essendon Airport. If you're familiar with that, and I was, very dissatisfied with the answers given by the ATSB, which basically said that when they investigated that CASA said we relied upon the advice of air services, and the ATSB apparently used WebTrack, and WebTrack is something that a 12-year-old goes online with to ask online where aircraft are. I'm just concerned that you've been given very poor information by the ATSB in relation to what was a very serious incident about. I'm happy for you to take this on notice, Mr. Skidmore, because it is quite I'm very worried about this particular incident, what appears to be a loss of separation assurance between Melbourne and Essendon airports, where aircraft were taking off at runways that weren't parallel, where they could potentially have intersected, I think it was several hours. Can you take on notice whether there has been a thorough investigation of the material that was provided to you by the ATSB, whether you are satisfied with that material, including the assertion that the ATSB relied on WebTrack, which I think in the aviation community that's something that's what kids rely on online to see where aircraft are travelling. And I put a number of questions to you back in May, on the 27th of May 2005. Mr. Cromarty did indicate, I want to put this on notice, was very helpful and did indicate that he wanted to speak to some of those air traffic controllers. Unfortunately, that at this stage are not prepared to come forward. but if you could give me some further information about whether you have dug deeper into the ATSB's answers or the information that are given to you, whether you consider it adequate or not.
Yeah, certainly happy to do that, Senator.
Yep, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. One. Thank you. Mr Skidmore, back in May, I foolishly assumed that you'd adopted as a KPI reducing the number of accidents per flying hour. You responded that you were actually reviewing the appropriateness of your KPIs and whether it was appropriate to have as a KPI reducing the number of accidents. So I asked you at the time how you were going for 2014-15, and this is May, and you said, look, if I can tell you exactly what you said, I don't have that information directly to hand, but we can certainly gather that information for you and check on it. I asked to put it on notice, and we got an answer. The answer was the data for 2014-15 year is not yet available. Is it available now?
Unfortunately, the data for 2014 calendar year is still not available, Senator, but we have been able to, based on some of the historical data, make an assessment in regards to the actual accidents and incidents levels.
So you don't know how many accidents there were in the year ended the 30th of June, and it's now October. You just don't, CASA doesn't know how many accidents there were.
We rely on the statistics being provided to us, and we're still awaiting that information.
From the ATSB?
It's not just ATSB, it's also to do with the flying hours, because we normalise the number of events, accidents and incidents across flying hours to be able to make an assessment from year to year.
Yeah, yes, I understand you have to know how many hours to do the sum. Okay, could you keep looking for me?
I certainly will, Senator.
I'm just really surprised that that's information that CASA doesn't know.
Mr. Bean.